I think we've known each other for quite some time, and I do normally share suggestions on what to go and see, but I don't really talk a lot about my favorite musicals. And in this video, I'm gonna reveal officially which are my top 5 musicals of all time. These are the musicals that I listen to all the time. Soundtrack is on my Spotify playlist. I have my favorite songs. I kind of keep coming back to them, and I ask you not to judge, or if you do, then at least share what your favorite guilty pleasures are, and also what's your favorite musical in the comments below. So we're gonna start with the position number 5 of Christina's favorite musicals, and this one is a bit controversial because it is Legally Blonde. I don't know if you've seen this musical, if you've heard of it, but if you haven't seen the musical, then you probably have seen the movie, which was released in 2001. And I need to admit something, like, this has never been a movie that I resonated with or that I liked. Like, I'm not blonde, I'm not into law, I don't live in America, I never dreamed of studying at Harvard. So basically all these things just do not qualify this story to be something that I can necessarily resonate with. But what they did so well in the musical is really amplified that story around Elle Woods being such an empowering female role model, and how her pursuits of her, what turned out to be her dream, is bigger than any relationship or boyfriend or anything. And the songs are so witty and clever. It's a really upbeat musical as well. There's like quite a lot of dancing and big numbers and lots of cast members. So seeing Legally Blonde for the first time in its full length during lockdown, actually on YouTube, because there is a footage that I'm going to link below if you want to check it out if you would like to see the musical. I think it's with the original cast as well. It's a pretty poor quality footage, so be warned, but if you just want to get the feel for the musical, then I think this would be a good way to start developing a relationship with it if you are interested, or if you like the movie and you haven't heard of the musical before. I did see it live as well at the Regent's Open Air Theatre 2 or 3 years ago, and that was also super fun. So unfortunately right now you can't really see this musical anywhere, but this is not to say that you can't go and listen to the soundtrack like I do. There are some of the songs that are my go-to. So Much Better is my favorite song of the musical, and I run to it quite regularly, and I love that song. Other than that one, What You Want is another one of my favorites from the musical. It has such an interesting musical storyline as well as lyrical, and I think it's such an upbeat song that you just can't not dance to it. And my third favorite song from this musical is There Right There. It is so fun and witty. The way that it's just written brings the emotion and the kind of essence of that scene to life so well. So these are my 3 favorite songs from this musical, and I would recommend you check out the soundtrack if you don't know it already. The position number 4 is reserved for Dear Evan Hansen. This is a soundtrack that I love singing, that I love listening to, that just I kind of engage with when I need a little bit of faith in humanity restored. This is the musical that I've seen in the West End twice with Sam Tutty, who actually received an Olivier Award for that role. He is an absolutely incredible actor, but just Dear Evan Hansen is a role that is perfect for him. Dear Evan Hansen follows the story of a boy who is struggling with fitting in during high school. He's suffering from poor mental health and just generally feeling a little bit like an outsider, and due to circumstances he becomes connected with this guy who has committed suicide, and he admits to being his friend, which he wasn't, just to get closer to the family of the boy who committed suicide and his sister who he had a crush on. And just from there evolves this very weird but at the same time heartwarming story, and at the same time heartbreaking story, because Evan never had this support in his family, and he's just finding himself in this kind of world that he's almost creating for himself in this lie that he's living in. Besides the storyline being really hard to tell or hard to resonate with maybe on the surface level because you're just like, this is wrong, the songs are so beautifully written, and I think that the overarching message is that you're not alone, as they sing in the song, and that there are so many people who are feeling similarly. And generally Dear Evan Hansen is one of those musicals that kind of either finds a way to your heart and stays there forever, or just you don't resonate with it at all. And I'm definitely the one who has completely absorbed this story, and I love it. I really love the songs from the musical, besides You Will Be Found, which is one of the most famous numbers that you've probably heard. I love Waving Through the Window, which is one of the opening numbers, as well as For Forever. That's maybe one of my favorite favorite songs from this musical, where Evan sings about his made-up friendship with Connor, and it is just as beautiful and as sad as it gets. If you are in the UK, you will be able to see Dear Evan Hansen on tour. It actually starts on the 28th of September and it goes all the way until 2025. So yeah, keep an eye on that if you haven't seen Dear Evan Hansen and you would like to check it out. We've got to the position number 3 of my favorite soundtracks and musicals, and this is a musical that I have seen this year, and you can see it still in the West End and on Broadway. That is Hadestown. Hadestown has really skyrocketed onto my list of favorite musicals quickly. Although, as I said in the video here, this wasn't love at first sight. This soundtrack and story has grown on me so much, and the soundtrack is probably one of the most beautiful that I've heard since Hamilton. I am obsessed with it. I listen to it quite a lot, and it's just sometimes one of those soundtracks that I put in the morning just to make me feel alive again. And it is brilliant because it's also jazzy and folky, and there's quite a lot of different sounds in it. It is maybe a little bit less of traditional musical theater sound, so it could be for people who are not into musical theater per se, but they would maybe like to tap into a little bit of musical theater vibes. Also, another thing about soundtrack for Hadestown is that you can really follow the narrative just by listening to the soundtrack, because there isn't a lot of spoken word during the musical, if maybe not at all. So basically what you hear in the soundtrack you're gonna also hear if you go to see the show, and then it's much easier to follow the storyline that way and just like close your eyes and imagine. The story of Hadestown is based on Greek myths, in particular the myth about Eurydice and Orpheus, who are lovers, and then also there are some other gods and characters from Greek myths such as Hades, Hermes, Fates. So I think if you are into that kind of narrative, those kind of stories, then you will love this musical. But at its very essence, it is a story about love, it is a story about capitalism, it is a story about our relationship with nature. So I think it's like a very much a story that is open to interpretation the way that you see it, like what's the most impactful narrative in it, because there are quite a few different ones. My favorite songs from Hadestown are Living in Up on Top. This is one of the songs that I put in the morning and I just like vibe to it. It is such a great tune and it is so much fun. The second song that I love is All I've Ever Known. It is a song by Eurydice and I love singing it. There's a little bit of like also Orpheus element at the end. The song is so beautiful. It captures so vividly that moment of falling in love with someone and how you feel and how you want that to last forever. And honestly, it's so beautiful that you have to listen to it. And then the third song is Wait For Me. It is a song by Orpheus, and it's just the whole arc of that song and how it builds into this like really eclectic kind of mixture of different sounds, and then it kind of ends in this kind of complete silence and leaves you literally waiting. It is incredible. So those are 3 favorite numbers that I have for Hadestown. Luckily you can go and check out Hadestown both in New York and London, so don't miss it while it's on. Obviously if you're not able to go and see it live, then make sure to check out the soundtrack, because all of these songs are available on Spotify or any other streaming platform that you might be using. We're talking about top 2 now, guys. So these are the musicals that I know almost by heart, if not certainly by heart, but they're definitely 2 musicals that I feel like if you were to ask me to pick the favorite out of the 2 of them, it would be like picking the favorite child. It would be really, really hard. But obviously I couldn't just place them both on top, so I'm gonna talk about the second choice first, and that is a well-known musical called Wicked. This musical, besides its beautiful story and songs, has such a big sentimental value for me, because when I was studying abroad, I met some amazing people who are still my really dear friends, but we don't live in the same place ever since basically we stopped studying together. And I remember us vividly singing the song For Good, which is literally about how sometimes you meet people and they change you forever. It doesn't matter that if you don't ever meet again, like you're literally changed because you've known this person. And that is the song that I always listen to and think of them and I cry to, because it is such a beautiful and heartfelt song. And because of that, just not because of that song, but because of how big that narrative around friendship, and especially female friendship in the particular instance of Wicked, is so important and so central to the story. I think that is one of the most beautiful musicals for me, because it really celebrates friendship in the nicest way, and just the differences between people as well. And it's also very glitzy and it's also very funny, and Glinda is one of my favorite characters ever. I would love to play Glinda, despite despite not being blonde, I can put a wig on. So the whole package is so beautiful. And then melodically is also such an incredible musical. Stephen Schwartz is just a wizard. And I can imagine that with the movie coming up that's going to be released soon with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, this is going to be even bigger peak in terms of interest for seeing this musical and seeing this story live. I'm so excited for the movie. I cannot wait to see it. So if you haven't heard of Wicked, which I highly doubt there's anyone who's watching this video who hasn't heard of Wicked, this is a story about two witches. One is good, Glinda, and one is bad, Elphaba. And the two of them come together to study together and they become roommates. This weird and unexpected friendship turns out to be very challenging, but also very empowering, and they kind of hate each other, but they end up also loving each other and really supporting each other ultimately and being there for each other. So it's such a beautiful story about friendship. It's a prequel to The Wizard of Oz, so if you like that story, then this could be something that can resonate with you. As I mentioned, my favorite song in the musical is For Good, and it's probably one of my favorite musical theater songs ever. But there are some fantastic other numbers that I'm sure you know, such as Popular, my favorite song by Glinda. Defying Gravity is such a classic. I feel so basic to say that that's a song that I really love, but I just love it because it's such a good song, and every time I hear it, I just cannot not sing or not engage with it. No Good Deed is one of my favorites as well. And probably to throw in another weird one is I like Dancing Through Life. So there you go. Judge me all you will. But I really love these songs and I love Wicked. So that's it. Let's go to the top. So we go to the position number 1 of the soundtracks and musicals that I'm the most addicted to. I feel like I have mentioned this musical before as one of my favorites. So if you are a subscriber, if you're not subscribed now, then you probably know that I'm talking about Hamilton. Hamilton is the musical that I know pretty much by heart and I love listening to it. And the thing with Hamilton is like it never gets old. Every time songs from Hamilton come onto my playlist, I rarely skip it. Honestly, it's just such a well-written musical with so many amazing songs that running, crying, singing, Hamilton has it all for me. The songs are so versatile that I can find one for all of the above mentioned scenarios. If you don't know the story of Hamilton, it follows Alexander Hamilton, who's one of the 4 founding fathers of the United States of America, and his life. And throughout that, there is a lot of American history that is talked about, but also his personal life, because he's lost a son, and his marriage, and you know how he's come about to be who he is and what's driving him and all of that. So the story of his life is really interesting, and this musical is written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is now everywhere because he's such a brilliant and talented writer. I mean, he also originated the role on Broadway and he got tons of awards for it because it's one of the best musicals ever written. I'm going to disclose my top 3 or 4 or 5 songs from Hamilton, and I'm going to start with Yorktown. That is one of the songs that I listen to the most when I go running. Just the way that the song progresses and gets really loud and really amazing with like the strings and everything, and just it gives me so much energy. So I love having this on my running playlist. Might be a weird choice, but call me weird, I love it. Then Satisfied is another one that I sing so much. I think it's one of those first songs from Hamilton that I've just learned because I wanted to be able to sing and be Angelica. Schuyler Sisters as well, but I feel like I'm just gonna now turn into like literally telling you the whole soundtrack because I just love every single song on it. When I want to cry, the song that I listen to is without a fail, It's Quiet Uptown. That song does it for me. Just hits me in my heart. It is a really sad moment in the storyline. There are so many amazing songs in Hamilton, but I'll let you check it out for yourself because Hamilton you can see in London, in New York, in Australia, in Singapore, wherever you come from. It's also touring in the UK. So basically you can see it in a lot of places in America as well. So probably out of the musicals that I've talked about, Hamilton is probably the most accessible one. Maybe Wicked as well. So yeah, go and check it out for yourself. It's honestly one of the best things that you might see. That wraps up my top 5 musicals of all time, or up until now, because you never know what might be released. I might love another musical, like I love Hadestown, which is the musical that I literally saw this year. But if you're interested in how to secure cheap tickets for any of these musicals, then check out this video where I'm talking about some of my tips and tricks on how to navigate buying tickets in the West End.